New York Post beat writer, Giants, Albany grad, good friend of our program, saw him on the road Monday night at Stony Brook after that Albany victory in the semis, and they go to the championship game Saturday morning. Good morning, Paul Schwartz.
Gentlemen, here's what I'm hearing.
Okay.
Brandon Marshall at 6'4", one of the items in his contract is he will be free as on Saturday morning to line up at power forward for Albany in Vermont. One-time deal. He'll be able to line up, get some boards, score inside, and then he will, start his duties with the Giants.
Well, I'll let Will Brown know, all right? I give him a call. I send a text to Will, and we have a little live local late breaking coming from Paul Schwartz. Are you going to be in Burlington?
Well, Rodger, Zach, I am undefeated seeing the Great Danes play this year, 3-0 in New York City for Columbia, in Albany, and in Stony Brook. But I will be rooting from afar. I will not be making the trip to Burlington. I've covered games in Burlington, and I've spent a lot of time in Burlington, but they'll have to do it with me cheering from afar on Saturday morning.
All right. Well, I'm sure you'll figure out some way to listen or watch or combination of both. ESPN2, 104.5. The team, you stream it, whatever you want to do. I'm sure you'll figure it out, and hopefully Albany can go there and shock everybody. They've done it before. That we know. And we've been there when we walked into that gym when no one thought on a Saturday morning they were going to win the game. And a couple of years ago, that's exactly what they did as a 4 seed.
Well, I have a lot, because Albany has been in it so often, I have a lot of memories of sitting in my den on the big screen, watching on a Saturday morning, watching Albany play at home in Vermont at Stony Brook, and, at 11 in the morning wearing my Albany stuff, and, my son's with me often, and, they're always agonizing and grueling and difficult, and, I have fond memories of watching, and so far I've never been disappointed, so hopefully they can pull it off one more time.
Let's hope. That'd be great. Paul Schwartz with us. Giants make a big move. We said last week, and when Brandon Marshall was released by the Jets, boy, make a lot of sense for Jerry Reese to pick up the phone and make a call and see if they could get him in a big blue uniform. And sure enough, Paul, he's coming to the Giants, and to me, this is just a home run ball written all over it. There's nothing not to like about this.
I mean, I have to admit I'm surprised. I'm certainly not shocked. From a football point of view, it makes perfect sense. I mean, he's older. He turns 33 later this month, but he's a physical specimen. His dramatic, reduction in production last year with the Jets is probably 90% attributed to Ryan Fitzpatrick and just, a terrible team and a terrible offense. So, I don't think the Giants aren't expecting him to catch 100 passes for 1,500 yards and 14 touchdowns like he did in 2015. Oh, by the way, they have a number one receiver. But, they need a big target. Eli needs big targets. He did not have any last year. That was a problem. You could tell. He thrived when throwing to a guy like Plaxico Burress, some of the bigger tight ends. So from a football point of view, it makes perfect sense. There are some things you have to wonder about. His personality, he wasn't great in the locker room last year, I've been told, with the Jets after things went south. Will he be a good influence on Odell? He's not exactly a mild-mannered guy. So, there are things to consider. But, 2 years, $12 million, it's not a crazy deal. But, it does take a chunk out of the salary cap, which was only $13 million coming into free agency. So it's a fascinating signing. It's very interesting. I know he's thrilled because he wanted to stay around and try to win a Super Bowl. The guy's never been in the playoff game. So, this is his chance to try to do that.
We were just talking before you came on, and actually off the top of our show is our lead story this morning our with the live local late breaking. But is there a better three-headed monster trio on one team in the NFL than what the Giants are going to have?
Well, on paper, probably not. We've heard that, it's funny. It's almost a rite of spring and then summer with Eli. We get around him, you guys know that for years when he was in Albany. And, you come around, you talk, you say, well, Eli, it's just the best receiver trio you've ever thrown to. He had Hakeem Nicks and Victor Cruz and Mario Manningham. The first Super Bowl, the first Super Bowl, he had Amani Toomer and Steve Smith and Plaxico Burress. So, there's always been iterations of these trios. is this the best? We'll see. I mean, it's got everything now. It's got, an excellent young slot receiver in Sterling Shepard. It's just got a freak in Odell on one outside, and it's got a big, tall presence. He's got 42 touchdowns in the red zone since 2010. And that was something lacking with the Giants. So, it's got all the ingredients. There's no question about it. Now, skeptics will say, well, how can Eli throw the ball on his back? How are they going to fix the offensive line? This is just the first step. They'll make other moves. Certainly they'll address things a little more in free agency and later on in the draft. But it's a big signing. It's a dramatic signing. It's, people are going to love listening to it on your station. They're going to love reading about it in the New York Post. They're going to click on it. It's a big signing.
Now, is the next step, Paul, to get to upgrade that offensive line? What can they do to make sure? Because now you got the big three. They're going to want to throw the football, right? They got to throw the football now. But Eli Manning needs time and protection to do that. What is the plan, do you think, up front in the O-line? Is it through draft? What are they going to do here?
Well, the draft, everyone says, I was down in Indianapolis for the Combine. They said if this is the year you want to look for a left tackle to move in and start, it's a bad year for that. Even the top-rated guys are not considered guys who are, plug-in-and-play kind of guys. Could one of those guys prove people wrong? Sure. You know what? The thing is the Giants are not that far off. They don't have to take dramatic steps. Getting Brandon Marshall is a pretty dramatic step. You can increase the blocking by signing a blocking tight end, right? Without going for, Russell Okung, let's say, in free agency to play left tackle. I going to be priced out of the market for some of these big left tackles. And, even these left tackles on the market are not, really great players. So I think they'll I think this will be their highest profile signing in free agency. They get a left tackle or a guard who comes fairly cheap and is a guy that you can project maybe to compete. That's fine. They do have the draft for all these things. There's no law that you can't get a guy in the second or third round who can develop into a good player. It's small steps. I mean, it's do they sign a guy and move Eric Flowers over to the right side? Maybe, but I think Giants fans should be prepared that Eric Flowers very, I don't know about likely, but very possibly could be their starting left tackle next year. Now, if you put a better blocking tight end next to him, it shores up the position a little bit. You can't cure everything, but Brandon Marshall for Victor Cruz here seems like a pretty big win for the Giants right now.
And Paul, to stay right on what you just said, the Marshall addition, Rodger and I were just talking a couple minutes ago, and Odell Beckham Jr. is kind of this enigmatic young man who doesn't really, he's not an advice taker. He's kind of the mindset, no one can tell me anything. Do you speculate, and that's all it would be, that a voice like Brandon Marshall, who's been in the league for over a decade, who's been an All-Pro, who numbers-wise is maybe on a Hall of Fame track, do you think that Brandon Marshall could be a guy that within his group that you're going to be working together every day, that OBJ would listen to and maybe not be subservient to, but would adhere to the advice of a veteran who is an alpha?
Well, that's the great question, Zach, and it's really fascinating because this is not, I don't think, Brandon Marshall's been traded 3 times. This is his 5th NFL team. The guy had some domestic violence issues early in his career. He's been diagnosed, with a mental illness, which he has spoken about and is, seemingly under control. I don't think anyone around the league, looks at Brandon Marshall and says, great leader. But he's a great talker, and he's great with the media, and sometimes that people falsely, wrongly think, great media guy equals great leader. We'll have to see. He's a great worker. I mean, he works hard, and he's in great shape, and he works hard. And Odell can certainly look at that. But I don't think, work ethic has ever been an issue with Odell. Is he the most stable personality for Odell to kind of just look at and have, does Brandon Marshall want to be a mentor to a guy like Odell? It's tricky. Odell is a freakish player and a superstar. So these are all things that have to develop. Obviously, the Giants think enough of him as a player and his work ethic that says this can work in this locker room. They do take these things into consideration, but I don't think it's I think it's something that has to be monitored and watched. I think the points you make are valid, and we'll have to see. It could be toxic, but probably won't be. when things went bad with the Jets, it was not a good situation with Brandon Marshall. Now, I think the Giants are looking at it saying Brandon Marshall couldn't deal with guys in his own locker room tanking. That's why he had such problems. We'll see. We'll see how it all plays out.
One more for me, Paul. What's the latest on JPP and coming up with enough dollars for that guy?
Well, the latest is he's signed for this year. And, like it or not, JPP may have to play for the 1-year tender of $17 million. I think it's a very hard contract to work out. JPP wants a lot of money. The Giants are not paying him what they paid Olivier Vernon. It's just not happening. JPP's older, semi-damaged goods, has also, has a track record of playing great for the Giants, but it's just not happening, with that kind of money. So, this thought that they're going to get it done before free agency, the official starting tomorrow, I think it's a pipe dream. JPP is under no compunction to get a deal done quickly, to help the Giants out with their salary cap. It does not behoove him to do that. I don't think they're close now. We'll hang up and a deal will get done in the next 10 minutes and I'll look bad. But I just don't think, the deadline for this is as urgent as people are making out. Sure, the Giants would like some salary cap relief going into free agency, but, JPP's people aren't thinking that way. So I think it's going to be a wait-and-see thing.
Paul Schwartz, always a pleasure, man. Thanks for a few minutes. A little impromptu with a live local late breaking right before our show. We heard Mike and Mike this morning and rolled with it. And thanks for coming on for a few minutes on the signing of Brandon Marshall.
All right, guys. Be watching and listening on Saturday morning.
Sounds good,
Thanks,
Paul. I know
Paul.
you will be. Thanks for everything. Appreciate it. That's Paul Schwartz, New York Post.